Hello, 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 hello. It is Sunday. It is February 6th, 2011. This is Day 9 Daily number 255. Wait a minute. Where's the webcam? What happened? Alright, well, my webcam's broken. It won't actually work. So this is me. Here I am. This is Day 9 Daily. You can see that I'm in a pretty good mood today because today is the day that we're going to be watching a lot of football, with the exception of between the hours of 7 and 8. Let's go ahead and do a little brush. See, I can actually show you what's happening in America. We have this sport called hand egg, whereby a bunch of burly men get together and they just essentially try to knock each other over while throwing this brown object into a certain area over here. And then when they get there, everyone just goes, touchdown! And they get really happy. But before I write touchdown, I'm just going to write touch. Just because I like abbreviations, I like shorthand jargon. So for any of you who have just tuned in, what I am doing is demonstrating surgery on a potato after the fact. Everything's doing fine just now. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the new developments that have been coming up today. Today, we're going to be doing a little bit of Zerg versus Terran action, everyone's favorite matchup. I'll let everyone know that I do write a Z as a Z. I actually have a little cross right through it, so that's good. This week's Fun Day Monday, just wanted to make the announcement about that, is that you have to do non-stop queen production. So what I'm going to be doing right now is I'm just going to draw a queen, so that way you guys know exactly what the upcoming Fun Day Monday is. So you have to basically, as Zerg, do non-stop queen production. And I don't necessarily mean that you need to do something like, have every hatchery at every single location, making tons and tons and tons of queens non-stop. Just as long as there's one queen being made at any point in time. Want to see some of the cool creative strategies that come out of that. What we're looking at right now is a queen vomiting larva. Here she is. And you have to make as many of those as possible. So we want... Oops. Alright, there we go. We basically want to see a lot of queens in this matchup. There we go. So we're going to actually be looking at a Zerg vs. Terran today. I don't want to do too many announcements because, of course, it's a little bit difficult to do announcements via text. But that's okay because, you know what, I'm actually in a very good mood today because outside people are watching sports. So you'll hear them going, oh, and all that screamaging. And I know that some of you did, very fun, exciting things like bet 1 week's worth of food on a team that you don't really know particularly much about. And I wish you the best of luck in your endeavor with this 3-leaf clover. So let's go ahead and go into this game. It's between Mondragon and EmpireKas. I wanted to also note what Newbie Tuesday was, but I didn't actually want to draw this, so I hope that you are all entirely satisfied with my illustrations for this particular event. For Newbie Tuesday, I would love it if you watched Day 9 Daily number 252, the daily where it's all about the secrets of mechanics, how to hold your hands, how to move your mouse, how to make sure to maximize the ability for you to do all that sort of good jazz with your hands. Nothing really about strategy was in 252, all about mechanics. I want you to try some of that and submit to me one of your replays with you really trying to do that, and we will watch those and I will look at your stuff in first-person view. Standard. And then what will happen in Newbie Tuesday is I'll watch and I'll be like, oh, I like the way he's looking. Oh, I don't like the way he's looking. Here's something that's really good. Here's something that's really concerning. And we'll hopefully flesh out some big mistakes that happen with mechanics in that episode. Hooray! So, these two players are awesome. For any of you who don't know EmpireKas, go to sc2ranks.com and notice that EmpireKas is really, really, really high up there. He's one of those beasts who's really just, worked his way up on the ladder, just playing like everyone with an absurd amount of games under his belt. He's pretty good. I think most of you are probably familiar with EmpireKas, but Mondragon, I think, is a player who's a little bit less known. He is a Zerg player who is like one of the best foreigner Brood War players of all time. In fact, a lot of the Korean teams were just dying to get him on there, but of course Mondragon, true to his German nature, just pretty much stayed in Germany. We see him early expanding here, nothing out of the ordinary. We see the scout going down. But the thing to note about Mondragon that made him an extremely interesting player in Brood War is that he absolutely always did what he thought was good. He really did not succumb to this problem of just trying to do whatever the top player was doing And as it was, continuing to not work, he wouldn't go, oh, I guess I'm going to go find what the next top player was doing. He very much so consistently does whatever he personally finds best. So it makes him very fun to play because he does really odd little things, such as rushing for a +1 carapace upgrade against Protoss, something like that. Very, very unique stuff. And of course in StarCraft 2, a game where decision-making has a lot more weight, it's cool to see him do stuff in there as well. So you see the usual extractor little trick. Most Terrans should always have a good response for when they have this sort of pressure at their face. This is useful for Mondragon for a couple of reasons. How many of you have ever had this sort of 12 hatch go down? Or excuse me, whoops, wrong game. Some sort of 14, 15 hatch, and of course 2 barracks end up rushing it. Well, you know what? If you scout in there and steal their gas, you always know where the Marines are. If you steal that gas, you don't see no Marines, you just need to run a whole bunch of duders to the front of your base. So EmpireKas, I think, is going to be doing a very clever response, but I just want to talk a little bit about that. And of course about the fact that we have our Queenies coming out. Everything is fine and normal in the world. So this is generally where I would come back here to the screen, and I'd be looking ordinarily happy, but suddenly my tone would change a little bit, right? Because I would get to this point and I'd be like, let's talk about transitions. And I'd kind of be like, oops, and you gotta eat our brush here. It can be like, let's think about this. Why is he going for these 3 barracks so early? And then I would get really happy and I'd tell you all about it. So let's go ahead and just imagine me doing that. Hooray! The thing to note about this kind of transition from EmpireKas is that he's getting the 3 barracks started before he's getting any add-ons. I know a lot of people will auto-default and just get the add-on, right when the barracks can afford it, and then they'll get their next barracks, and then they'll get that add-on right when they can afford that, and they'll get this barracks right as they can afford it. However, we're just going to see from EmpireKas that this ends up working out much, much more nicely. Because by getting all 3 barracks up, he's a little bit, he won't have stim as fast, but he can start producing more units more quickly. Let's just actually see this in sped up motion. Right, so we see that this add-on's coming up, and then immediately another add-on is coming out. And then immediately another add-on, obviously, is going to be coming out. Let's see. Yep, there it is going down. And see, there's the stim pack that is coming up as well. So we're going to see EmpireKas. His tech lab was delayed a little bit, so this stim he can't rush for. But overall, by getting these 2 barracks earlier, he's obviously going to get more units earlier. Too often, players will just kind of auto-default, and they'll build a barracks and then just sort of get, its add-on and build the next barracks and get its next add-on. And then this barracks feels very, very, very difficult to be able to afford. It doesn't feel intuitive, but we're going to see EmpireKas. He's going to have really nice, constant production out of this. I just want to illustrate how constant it actually ends up being. We see some Marines being pulled out. Here's the double Marine play. Oops, accidentally built an extra one. Going to go ahead and cancel that. But I'm even going to hold down the Alt key so we can even see the production over on this one. Look at these 2 guys just churning out their Marines. Look at them. Totally constant. We can clearly see that EmpireKas can afford it. Ooh, even getting a Marauder now. Oops, looks like... No, yeah, he's absolutely fine. He can afford all those Marines. Just looks like his depot was a little bit delayed. Has absolutely zero issue in the slightest. So I think virtually everyone is cool with the idea of, yeah, I can get 3 barracks on my base, on one base, and I can get fast stim, and I can do an early attack. Almost everyone will do that. However, it's very important. A lot of people do this, and this always bothers me, right? A lot of people, you know what they do? They get 2 barracks first, and this makes me very angry. And in fact, it gives me a Shaolin beard, yes. A lot of people get this second barracks and the reactor a little bit too quickly. And what happens is they get stim a little faster, generally at about the same time, but with a much smaller army. And it never quite feels like they can afford this little extra bit. So everyone knows about this 3 barracks play, but I'm talking largely about optimizing it. Optimizing it is really key, is really, really, really key. So I also want to share a story while I just rewind this game and we speed it up and get back to right where we were from Zergy's point of view. That was a great example of optimizing. that build. I think EmpireKas did a fantastic job, so steal that. If you ever want to do a push, build the 3 barracks, and then get all the add-ons. And even with that early gas timing, you'll still have enough gas for everything. Okay, story time. Optimization and sort of cleaning up these little tiny things might feel not as important as strategy. Right? So, I mean, as an example, I'm just going to look at this hatchery, and we're going to look at the time that this pool finishes. We're going to look at the time that this pool finishes. I'm going to slow it down as I get there. Okay, we're almost done. Now watch how immediately after this pool is done, the queen pops out. Pool's done. Mondragon, you're making me look bad, man. You're making me look so bad. Alright, there we go. There's the queen coming out right now. And it looks like this queen. Hopefully this will end up coming out on time. Hopefully he ends up just spamming the queen out. I don't remember if he got 2 queens fast this game or whether he opted to do other things. But you know what? That was just the most tragic thing in the universe, so I'm going to have to use EmpireKas as an example. Alright, let's look at this barracks. Let's look at how quickly this reactor pops down. Let's look at how quickly it comes down. Bam! Okay, notice how this SCV had hardly even hopped away from this barracks before this reactor came down. That's the sort of thing that a lot of these silver, gold, bronze level players have a lot of trouble with, is this sort of thing. And the reason they have a lot of trouble is just because they don't have the hand speed. They just don't quite have the hand speed and just the general memory to be able to say, okay, I got to build this, and oh yeah, I got to get this reactor, and oh, if I started stim, and okay, am I making a marine? Like, the multitasking is actually very, very hard to get used to in StarCraft 2. I mean, look at that. Hell, even he just passed 50 energy and immediately throws down a mule. Very, very nice focus from EmpireKas. And whenever someone says, work on your macro, do this sort of thing, I know so many of you say, oh, it feels not cool, it feels uninteresting, and this sort of thing. But I was just hanging out with a friend today, and he was playing some games, and he was playing Protoss, and, you know, he built his pylon, and got his gateway, and then kind of forgot to chrono boost probes, and then his money got a little high because he was scouting around his opponent's base. And then what happened? Well, he came back home and then tried to build a cybernetics core, and he realized he had too much money, so then he built an assimilator. Got supply blocked on the second pylon. It wasn't as horrendous as I'm making it sound, though. The assimilator went down on 16 or 17 instead of the usual 14. His pylon was started on 18 instead of the usual 17 or 16. His cybernetics core was finished. He didn't quite have gas for warp gate. Maybe he had to wait 5 seconds to be able to get that gas for warp gate. It was really, really didn't feel that big. But right when he hit 33 food, we stopped and we looked at the time. Right? So here's the story. Here was the outcome as I've been dabbling around in that game. We looked at the time. When he was at 6 minutes and 24 seconds, he was at 33 food as Protoss. And then I sat down and I executed the opening, and I was at 5 minutes flat with 34 food. And this is what always confuses the bronze to silver to gold level players, is that they'll be doing the correct strategy, so much so that they get a star. And in fact, it's so good that I'm even going to make it a gold star, right? They did a really great job with their opening build order. But the real problem is, oh gosh, I hate it when that happens. Oh gosh, I hate that. But the real issue is they're choosing the correct strategy, but they're executing it incorrectly. And when I say that, everyone says, yeah, I totally know what you mean. I got to work on it. But look at what happens if you do the right thing the wrong way. This is a full 90 seconds, and 90 is so big that it gets the very, very loud red color. Oh my god, 90 seconds? That's like 2 Colossi chrono boosted that you just didn't get. 90 seconds is about how long it takes to build an expansion. If you mess up a couple little tiny things at the start, you can get 90 seconds behind real fast. And we do not want this. We don't want you to be having this sort of situation. So that's why I wanted to spend so long looking at this opening from EmpireKas, just talking about the refinement of it, talking about how quickly he built those reactors right when they popped off, because it's some really, really, really good examples of some really crisp timing. And I promise you that if you are focusing nice and hard, and if you are trying a really good job of trying to make sure everything's very crisp, that you're building new units right when the other one's finished, like this, look at the units they just finished, and let's see if he ends up queuing another one in time. Oh, no, because he's going all in, right? Yep, well, it looks like he built it right as he had the money to. Good, good, that sort of thing. It's those moments that will let you get this far ahead, And so interestingly, you can do the same strategy that you're doing already, dear gold and silver leaguers, but if you execute a little more crisply, you can get full minutes ahead and suddenly games feel easier to win. So Mondragon was opening up in fairly typical fashion. He ends up getting this Baneling nest kind of early on, but like most good Zergs, when he sees that there's this crisis coming, he immediately responds by getting a lot of spine crawlers as fast as he can. He already does have the speed upgrade out, but this is going to be a fairly intimidating push from EmpireKas. He is darting right up in there, and there's the stim. Not even going to try to just muscle his way in, and I'm not quite sure how I like this timing of Mondragon, right? I'm not entirely sure if he really just should have sent everything in there sprinting to kill all this stuff off. Probably could have reorganized, like pulled maybe the drones over here, pulled the Zerglings down here, and then crunched this all at once. But we can already see that this is virtually over for Mondragon, right? Virtually over until that happens. That's pretty good. So that's fairly effective. That's not exactly what you want to have happen. I mean, really, this is a great example of a little mistake that can make you convinced that you did something wrong when really you may have done the absolutely correct build. In general, that's one of the hardest things to see in a game of StarCraft, is what the huge error was, or what I call the key moment of any game. So I just want you to know that here is my rendition of EmpireKas at that very moment. And part of the reason I paused to go through that whole rant to draw that little face is the following. Look at the resource distribution. 1 second before that went off. Right? This looks terrible for Mondragon. This looks terrible. This looks really bad. So this game... So this is the sort of moment that could potentially cause someone a loss. This is the sort of moment that, let's say you were doing this rush and this whole thing died, that you might just go, oh gosh, and stop with rage. But I want you to accept that this opening was really important. I always talk about the key moment analysis. The key moment, assuming EmpireKas loses this game in like 5 seconds, the key moment right now is this part right here. And the question is, what went wrong? And it's, well, EmpireKas surrounded a Baneling egg on accident, and it popped up and killed him. EmpireKas can say pretty safely, hey, that's actually a pretty damn good timing on that attack. I'm going to do that attack more often. You just do not want to get in the position where you end up thinking your build is bad when something else is actually what went wrong. So we're going to speed things up a little bit. And this is a point in time where I'm going to completely shift my focus, and we're actually not going to be doing that much pausing. I needed to emphasize how good this build was, how crisp it was, and then I needed to emphasize how that was the moment that went wrong. Nothing else beforehand. So here's an interesting point in time where EmpireKas, look at the unit counting station, 20 SCVs. He committed a ton of SCVs to that initial attack, and now he has to try to get back on track. Mondragon is equally kind of messed with. Look at this. No Leor. No Leor. We see Mondragon making quite a few Zerglings. He has some, quite a few Banelings. Has a couple of Zerglings marching about the map. There is the command center going down. Oh, wow. That's interesting. EmpireKas doing something very weird. Whoa. We'll end up seeing kind of how it plays out. Now, this is something that actually, I'm not going to pause, because again, what would I do? I would just be like, you mad? You mad, EmpireKas? You mad? You angry, huh? Are you mad? I could do that, but instead I'm just going to stay here and focus on these factories. People will see this huge crushing blow that happened for EmpireKas, and let's say you did this huge crushing blow that happened to EmpireKas. You were the Terran player in this game, and it botched beyond belief, and you were like, freaking out, all angry. And the question is, what now do you do? This transition to a big mech play better be planned. Often when people are behind and something goes so awful, they tend to just convince themselves, well, herp, derp, derp. I guess I just need to do something insane to win. You'll see a lot of people do a cheese mess up and say, I guess I'm gonna go Cloaked Banshees and try to win that way. Or most Protosses who Cannon Rush will be like, I guess I'll Dark Templar Rush now. It's very funny to kind of see it happen because it's so consistent in the way it plays out. But EmpireKas is going to be transitioning into this. We want to try to ask ourselves, is this panic mode? Is this panic mode all of these Hellions being produced? This is a lot of Hellions, and also the Blue Flame upgrade. Well, we do see Mondragon is already getting, looks like some Burrow. He's getting the Baneling speed. He's getting the centrifugal hooks, that is. Expo down right now for EmpireKas. Still just rallying out a lot of those Hellions. But we don't see any Marines. We don't see any Marines coming out. So he's making a lot of Hellions at this point in time. Hiding them, actually, at the back. So here is what I want to ask you. Here's what I want to ask you. Suppose I only showed you. Suppose I actually hid these two barracks. You couldn't see them. And this is what we saw. Right? We saw second base. We saw these 3 factories. The question is, what is the overall goal of this, right? Why so many Hellions and nothing at all but Hellions? And we want to think about this from the point of view of having no memory that this whole little push action happened. We want to think, what are good about Hellions in general? Well, in general, a big Hellion play is pretty much only stoppable with a big Roach play. With a lot of Zerglings early on, it's quite difficult to hold off once they get this high of a Hellion count. Also, these Hellions are great at being mobile. They can easily control these 2 watchtowers. It's a great way to leave this base defended. So if for any reason we know our opponent is mainly going Zerglings and Banelings, if for any reason we know our opponent is going Zerglings and Banelings, if for any reason we see not Roaches, Mass Hellion might be a very, very reasonable thing to transition into. And we see Mondragon trying to do a good job of surrounding, but you know what? The Hellions are just a little bit too fast. There's the Baneling managing to do some good damage. But of course, once the Blue Flame ends up coming out, it'll be a little bit difficult. Look at that. That's kind of a nice cleanup. And in the resource counting station, we can see that EmpireKas is once again ahead. He's still continuing Hellion production. He's still continuing Hellion production. You always hear me say the following. Have a mid-game plan and make it not that complicated. This is not a complicated mid-game plan. Get a ton of Hellions. Get a lot of Hellions on 2 factories with reactors and 1 with a tech lab so we can blue flame it up. Eventually get an armory. Let's see how this ends up turning out. Because I really want to emphasize to you that you shouldn't be building a bunch of Hellions going, I hope I get lucky. You should be building a bunch of Hellions with a clear plan of how they accomplish what you want to do. Oh, looks like Banelings are kind of bad at doing the exploding when you ask them to. EmpireKas being real patient with those Hellions. Really like that. There's the Burrow. Of course, the scan from EmpireKas. And this is a very interesting moment where we're seeing still nothing but Hellions pop out, and Zerg's having kind of a rough time dealing with it. This is a mid-game that I've really not thought about, that I've really not considered, and in a sense, EmpireKas is just stockpiling gas to be able to do more fun things with, like, a Thor, for instance. Mondragon is going to be making some Mutalists. He's going to have his first little breather. And again, this is a very trademark Mondragon thing. Not getting the +1 upgrade that everyone else is getting, but instead getting the +1 carapace. And I feel like this game, I am leaning a little bit more towards the EmpireKas analysis, because, you know what, Mondragon's doing everything pretty damn normally, and EmpireKas's transitions are so wild that really they're something that we very much so would like to focus on. So there, of course, is the killing off of the drone, the scan to just double check to make sure there's nothing burrowed, and these, I guess this is like semi-suiciding, because honestly, this is going to kill so much stuff. And of course, here are the Zerglings coming out to do very, very little. Here are more Hellions swinging up. This is kind of insane that this sort of thing is plausible for a Zerg buddy to do. Gotta be a little bit careful though. Oh, with the Burrow, looking good. And of course, going right back to roasting, as is the favorite activity of the Hellion. Now, what I would like to especially note about this little transition that we saw going down is that right before then, and I'm going to pull this back. This kind of comes back to this food differential. A lot of people will think even food means even gameplay, and over time we've started to see more and more that Zergs tend to be a little bit ahead of their opponents in food just because the Roaches cost so much. But in this moment, Note that this mix from EmpireKas is focused. The fewer types of units you have, the larger your army is overall. This army is around 100 food. If you went for like tanks and maybe some marines and marauders, it would be a smaller army. The more variety you get, the smaller your army ends up being. Just because you have to spend so much money getting these different kinds of units with all their upgrades and add-ons and the like. But this is an amazing example of units which serve their purpose so well. These Hellions are so good at killing drones and Zerglings that by making only Hellions, Mondragon is completely pressured to always be on the defensive. And even again, look at the unit counting station, 29 drones. Complete and total defensiveness from Mondragon. Complete and total utter inability to do much of anything. And now, in the meantime, EmpireKas is getting to get his Thors up. He already has one out. 2 more are on the way. He has this armory up, can begin getting upgrades. And interestingly, if EmpireKas didn't do this big marine play early on, he may have had the ability to have even more units at this point in time. Here comes Mondragon for a little bit of harassment. He's going to see that there is one turret hugging the far left to sort of zone the Mutalisk to stay farther to the right. We're going to see Hellions pop... the Thor pops out like right now, and of course, there's the repulsion. And the interesting thing to note from Mondragon's point of view is that he is very calmly and coolly making lots of drones. Very often. I'm curious how many of you would get in the position, you know, where you had to pull all these drones off, you lost half your drones here, this expansion was killed off, you're under constant pressure from Hellions. I'm sure there's a high number of you who would just be like, yeah, I guess I make roaches and try to attack. And you'd like scout here, you'd see the expansion done, and you'd be like, does that mean I'm dead? Absolutely not. Look at this. Mondragon is making an absolutely fine little return. He's getting a lot of drones. He is starting to cover this space back up. He's starting to finish up this hatchery. There, a lot of Mutalisks continue to poke around the map. More Thors coming out. Cool. There's the upgrade. Yep. Vehicle plating helps deal with those Mutalisks a little bit better. So what I'm really saying is, anytime someone does one of these huge, harass, aggression-heavy things, like getting 14 to 16 Hellions against you, he might do a good amount of damage, and you're still completely even. If it does no damage, you're actually overwhelmingly ahead. But this is generally the way that this sort of game will play out if it's between two people of approximately equal skill level. And we're seeing Mondragon do a very nice job of trying to sort of re-establish his foothold in this game. See him spreading out his Banelings, mounting up for a big attack. Notice the patience from Mondragon. Notice that incredible patience. And there he rolls right on in, trying to get the those Hellions. He does. I actually do not mind Banelings against Thors. They're actually kind of really, really good, as Slush from Root Gaming kind of demonstrated in some of his recent tournament matches. And now we do see that the Zerglings are able to surround, pick off, and clean up, and that is a whoa, just barely moment. And not quite picking it off. Now, many of you will still think to yourselves, oh man, that was a super even close fight. That was not a close fight at all. I'm going to go to the resource tab. I'll be blown away if Terran was ahead in food. I'm blown away. I guess Zerg suffered. No, I guess Zerg's doing fine. He has 51 drones. He'll be able to make plenty more. This is actually a pretty okay situation for Mondragon because he already has this expansion up. If it had more health, that would be better, but you can always transfuse your way back in. But I mean, look at Terran right now. What can Terran do? He can't really move out at all right now. There is nothing that Terran can do. So the lesson I'm trying to repeat over and over and over again in this game is that Terrans or Protosses are very, 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 very much so neglecting these mass one specific type of unit plays, you know, like massing a lot of Hellions to force him to make fewer Zerglings and to mess with his drone numbers. And of course this buys time to get up this orbital command, so then you can begin getting your real power meat units. I mean, you can even think about it in those early days when players would do nothing but make Reapers against Zerg. The Reapers were actually not very good against the variety of Zerg units, but they were so good at picking off Zerglings and keeping the Zerg buddy contained that Terrans would just end up massing them. Same way with these Hellions. So, just want to propose that you Terran players begin doing that more, and keep in mind this idea that you'll generally be outfooding your opponent. You need to kind of do a little bit more damage than you'd ordinarily maybe expect. And for a Zerg player, or any of you who are up against somewhat of an unorthodox, funky strategy, do not be uncomfortable when you get into some of these types of awkward situations, because right now, again, many people are going to think to themselves, oh, woe is me, I'm so far behind, oh, I'm doomed, there's no way I'll ever come back, when in reality, this game is still quite a bit closer than you would perceive. Now, I would finally say EmpireKas has a definitive advantage, because he killed off that one Expo without really suffering that many losses of his Thors. But Mondragon is going to proceed as normal. He's going to be getting a lot of just drones. He's going to be continuing to do that. He's going to be getting the Neural Parasite. A lot of people do not go Zergling Infestor against Mech, but Mondragon is the sort of player who just does that, right? He does what he thinks is best. He trusts himself a lot. You should trust yourself a lot too. No matter what level of skill you are, you kick ass at StarCraft 2. Yeah, a lot of Thors coming out right now, and then the Mariners now coming up to do a little bit of backup. This is the first point in the game when I'd actually really be like, ooh, EmpireKas is getting kind of super intimidating. Because this big mass Hellion opening is a big time buyer to kind of get your game going. And just doing some pushes with a couple of Thors is not exactly getting your game going. That's like maybe having some good units for early defense, maybe to be able to do an early attack, but you have to have a plan with how you're going to end up using the Thors as the game goes on. So I'm loving this big Marine Marauder Hellion Thor mix, with just kind of an emphasis on the Thor, as we can see having these two Factoirs here. Mondragon now pulling back, just sort of going Roaches and Infestors. I like this play a lot. He's kind of up against the wall, and he's low on Larva, going to make those Roaches. Roaches and Mutas and Infestors at this point I prefer a little bit more than Lings and Banelings, just because you need so much Larva to support Lings and Banelings. You probably generally need a third hatch-up to just have enough. Getting surrounded. EmpireKas having to wait infinity hours to be able to begin that expansion. Let's check the food counts. Mondragon is a little bit behind. I'm going to speed things up so we can figure out what ends up going down. What mysterious thing do you have in store for us, Mondragon? And there's the Planetary Fortress coming down right now. Armory not doing much. Looks like, ooh, could begin churning out some Thors as long as he was not supply blocked. Now, if any of you watched the game that we did on Thursday, the Choose Your Own Adventure style game, we talked endlessly about Terran having a simple plan and sticking to it. In this game, EmpireKas, this is how I would state his simple plan. Get a lot of Hellions early. Step 1, get a lot of Hellions early. Like lots, like 20. Step 2, get a whole bunch of Thors and just start being aggressive against this expansion. Or maybe this one if Zerg had that, but basically from here and here, just everything there. Step 3, go back to getting Marines and Marauders. And then just keep making Thors and Marines and Marauders and Hellions. And keep pushing this place. EmpireKas is, for the third time, pushed everything into the exact same location. No variety. You don't need variety to win. You just need to identify those weak points. And just keep pushing until you end up being the greatest player in the world. Look at that amazing hero hold by Mondragon, not having a problem with it at all. Looks like finally Neural Parasite wears off. Could probably do some little more NP, as we see that the Neural Parasite is 100. Can he actually do it in any of those? Wow. He does it. He does it. He manages to hold it off. So now we have EmpireKas, interestingly, who is so far ahead, now feels very much so behind. We see a lot of tanks coming out right now. More Marines and Marauders. And again, another little transition from EmpireKas, but let's not forget the simple theme he's been doing of pushing up along this lane constantly. Here comes Mondragon with the classic Mondragon Force. An all-tech unit force, not huge amounts of units, just getting his fancy stuff up fast. And then we see the mass Neural Parasite. This is awesome! And look at Mondragon, he even have the gas to be able to do a lot more good stuff with it. Now going to be target firing each other, and there's the Thor running out of Neural Parasite, grabbing him again. And now, for the first time in this game, Mondragon has begun to force his way back in. Going to slowly force his way back in. And this occasionally ends up being a little bit of a problem with one of these builds where you end up having just a little bit too much of a crutch unit. In StarCraft 2, big units like Thors or carriers, or motherships, are such obvious targets that if you make something to target them, you can get screwed real hard. These infestors, obviously designed to deal with the mass Thor play of this guy, whoever the hell he is. EmpireKas obviously made these infestors to be able to deal with this very high mech count, the very high Thor count. And look at how incredibly strong and effective it has been for Mondragon. I think that this is an extremely smart choice of EmpireKas to end up going tanks, but that still doesn't mean he ain't going to be having a real hard time right now. So he's having to begin the long swing down. Now, let's talk about plans from the Zerg's point of view. I am going to keep this real simple. Ignore this expansion. When I attack his Zerg, I'm just going to go right here to his natural. For some reason, this is the last spot that Terrans ever protect. In fact, this is one of the most least defended locations for Terran on the whole map. Some of you will say, well, that's not a good strategy to just be like, well, most people don't do it, because what if he does do it? Well, if a Terran does defend here, then there's no way he could attack here and here and here at the same time, because he's too busy closing off this spot. He can easily be pretty darn aggressive. Mondragon with the re-attack. Roach Hydra, Roach Infestor, I actually firmly believe is going to slowly become kind of a standard for Zerg players. Infestors with all the upgrades, roaches to deal with a lot of the brunt of things, and then just a lot of fungal growth and puking out some of those infested Terrans, getting some of those neuroparasites off. Coolly, ooly, ooly, oh. Whoa, 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 whoa. Don't queue, ever. Don't queue. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Speeding things along right now. One thing to note, Mondragon's still getting lots and lots of gas. Again, that's kind of one of those Brood War plays where you're Zerg and you're like, I guess I only need gas to play this matchup. Very, very, very effective, though, to have a lot of gas stockpiled, but I think 1700 is a little bit much. Notice EmpireKas continuing to push along the exact same lane over and over again. Bum-ba-da-dum-ba-da-dum. Just continuing to pummel down here. Strategically, not amazing variety in attack locations. That's great. That's great. He has a clear plan and he's sticking to it. He has the planetary fortress here. He has put into the supply depots here to block movement to protect this planetary fortress because he knows he's going to be pushing on the left side. I mean, it's little things like these two depots to help protect this guy lets you know that Terran's trying to block attacks on the right flank because he's moving along the left flank. Very, very obvious. You know, after the fact, make sure that every little thing you do sort of aligns with this. Like, for instance, walling off here and here. So that way when you push up, you have a narrower region to defend for a swing-around attack. Now, I guarantee you EmpireKas is going to go right here because he sticks to his plan. Oh, that's so good. And now we see that Mondragon's trying to get into a good spot. Looks like he will end up succumbing to defeat. Trying to pull back. I'm curious about this hotkey setup. Nope, everything is controlled with one. That disappoints me. Whatever, ever. And we're seeing EmpireKas get to a point where he has half and half. A Marine Marauder Thor Hellion Siege Tank mix. Pretty much no medevacs. And I do like that quite a bit. And it's not so much that he's getting this half and half mix. It's more that he started with these 3 racks and then switched over to these 3 factories. And now he's going back to bringing in the barracks. That's what we call great transitioning with those buildings. Great transitioning. Mondragon going to be doing some long-range mining. EmpireKas weirdly low on money. Oh, God. Everything I was saying was just so boring. Excuse me. Oh. Now, why is EmpireKas moving to the right? Is he mad? Let's find out. Why is EmpireKas doing this? You know what? I'm actually just going to draw this out because I have not gotten the chance to draw enough. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to interest you and introduce you to my rendition of Xel'Naga Caverns. Dum, 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 dum. Good. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba. Let's go ahead and make ourselves a gold expansion. Let's go ahead and make ourselves some blue. Oh, look at this. I'm actually pretty darn good at capturing the look and feel of this map. But of course we need the Xel'Naga Cavern. We'd need this little strip here. We need this little disc over here. And what we've been seeing is we've been seeing EmpireKas march his horsies up this way and drill the expansion here and the expansion up here. That's great. Whoops. deleted part of the map. But now suddenly he's going this way. Too often people will see this and be like, oh, alright, I can do all sorts of attacking with Terran. I can attack here, I can even bring like a drop up along here, I can do that over here. And Terran basically says, okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 options. Let's do option, bring, and just picks one like it's the lottery, and that is not what you want to do. You want to have one clear attack path, and when all of a sudden you shift, there should be a damn good reason why. Really good. And for our little Terran buddy, it is because he is trying to take this expansion. So he's just swinging over to this way. Before, he was easily swinging up this north way because there was nothing here to defend. There's absolutely no expansion. He just had to continue drilling there. So that is one thing to note that is so key. Look at this. First time he attacks, lines exactly up with that command center. And now we're seeing EmpireKas move to the right. Every race should do this. Expand in a way that sort of protects things on the backside. Drones run in away. EmpireKas getting a little overeager, bringing absolutely 100% of his forces over to the other side. And it looks like he will end up losing one Thor. We'll see Mondragon being very, very careful to make certain that he fungal growth, that he delays. Because this is looking awfully intimidating. Again, just pushing up this right lane. Look at how safe this base looks on the minimap. Look at how incredibly safe it just feels when you know, sort of roll around in your mouth a little bit. Let that delicious taste of attack timing. It has a lot of different flavors in it. Just let that sink in for a bit. Mondragon is trying to build up. And this, I think, is probably my current, like, favoritist part in the whole game. This moment right now. Where EmpireKas is pretty much denying this base and denying this base. And that's it. Now that he's killed him, let's go home! Cool, we did it! Yes! We conquered what we needed to. Let's go home and retreat. No pushing for the main, no forcing of the issue. You better give up, Mondragon, because I am never going to kill you. Oh, God, that was boring. Okay, cool. So it looks like Mondragon is kind of screwed, and again, EmpireKas wants to push up and down one of these lanes. He's going to wait for this to finish. And just keep this generally very, very cool, good army movement. EmpireKas trying to make some missile turrets, trying to defend all his little bonus Muels. He's going to have a little trouble, but he can easily lift this off. And this is probably one of the more impressive games I've seen of a Terran dismantle a Zerg in a long time. I'm very impressed with Mondragon's tenacity, the fact that he is really hanging in there, trying to do a seriously good job of using those infestors to sort of stretch the game length of time out. All sorts of great goody goodness. But I really think EmpireKas had just amazing transitioning start to finish. And oh my god, are you seeing what I'm seeing? He is moving along this top lane and then expanding to the left. Yeah! Defending his back expansions. That is so cool. That is so cool. And of course everything's going to get killed off, as I would imagine, and there's the good game. So let's go back and learn the lessons that we need to learn, and then I am actually going to go with no Q&A, because it's very awkward to just sit here with a webcam and try to continuously draw things in MS Paint. I don't want to do that. It makes me sad. It even makes my hair sweat. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and break this down. Step 1. What did he do? He made a bunch of barracks at the start. Here's 1 barracks, 2 barracks, 3 barracks, and the thing that we loved most about it was the timing, right? We loved that it had good timing. In fact, so good that it gets the day 9 green check mark of approval, right? That's very hard to get, but of course, EmpireKas is a very talented player. Here's our R and R and R for barracks. And then Phase 2. In Phase 2, this is where things, I think, were kind of interesting. When the attack failed, he just went for one unit that we call a Helion. Like on mass. So I'm just going to draw an up arrow. So it's like, whoa, it's exploding. I'm actually even going to set the Helion words on fire because there were so many of them. And then the next thing he did was he went Thors, right? He went for the Thor part. I'm actually going to see if I can... Oh, actually, this is going to be awesome. I'm actually loving this. Alright, cool. He went Helion into Thor. And then, after he got that up, then he got racks. He got his 3 racks back and running, and he got his 3 factories continuing to run. So he could do big pushing with both of them. Big pushing, which again, this gets the day 9 mark of approval. I love this, because notice how this opening, or let me do this with my circles. Notice how this opening of the barracks easily feeds into this. And notice how these parts of Phase 2 easily feed into that. If you said to yourself, I really, really, really want to figure out a way to do raxes and factories in the mid-game, well, I would suggest to you that you begin with this, and then begin with that, because each of them dumps into part of it. Right? Each of them contributes to it in some way. A lot of people will just sort of add one, then add the other, then add one, then add the other, then add one, then add the other. And then step 4, as you saw me draw out, was attack. Whoops, attack. Things are really hard to spell when you're writing them with your mouse hand. Look at that K, what a brutal K. Attack, left, lane. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw an arrow back up to the top, because EmpireKas just kept drilling this. And I'm also going to say do this and also get that gold base. I think that was another key thing to note, is that he attacked up the left lane as he got the gold. And this is like it. This is how I would describe the entire play. The entire play. And we can even come in here with our little lettering, and we can make little notes. Like here, I can comment on things. Oh, Jesus, I need to make that smaller. Yeah. So, I mean, in Phase 1, let's make our notes in red so we can see it. So we can go, okay, alright, where's my Arial black? Thank you very much. So, that's too small. Okay, it's important that as a graphic designer, as Day 9 the graphic designer, that I have good notes here. So, I mean, this is 3 racks because he stole my gas. And also, I'm going to rewrite that because it didn't let me stretch it out enough. There we go. 3 gas, or 3 racks due to gas steal plus really good timing equals almost win in early game. Okay, cool. All right, so I have a little bit of understanding. So we're going to slowly see what I'm doing. We're going to slowly see what I'm doing. Okay. Ba-da-dum-bum-ba. Alright, cool, let's do this portion. Day 9 the graphic designer. Going to go for a little bit of a column look here. This was Hellions for map control. Plus, he has lots of lings. Also, we can get Thors for an early attack. And I'm just going to say also Thors for early attack. And then here, I'm going to be transition into flexible army, lots of tanks or Thors plus tons of M&M, depending on what he's building. And because I'm a mathematician, I remember to close my parentheses. Simple plan for last 15 minutes of game. So here now, I have literally written out a full game plan. A full game plan. Notice how neat and clear it is, with the exception of the fact that it looks hideous visually. In terms of mental organization, this is pretty clear. This is pretty clear. By the way, people talking about me closing my parentheses twice. Excuse me. You see this paren here? And that open paren? Yeah, double close paren. Thank you. Thank you. Bam. Oh, God, I'm so good. Anyways, look at how clear this is. I would say that you always hear me say, have a mid-game plan. Well, if I can find my shapes properly, this is really the mid-game plan. Probably a little bit more of this, but a lot of this attack the left lane stuff. A mid-game plan where you're saying, you know what, I'm a Terran player, and I want to go for a kind of half and half where I have some barracks, I have some factories, and I want to constantly attack up the left lane with a gold. I'm done with my entire frickin' plan with just these 2 things in the box. Most of you could probably even get away with this and have a lot of success. And if you want to be a Master League level player, well, you'll incorporate the idea of how you want to be attacking consistently. But for any of you who are having new issues, or excuse me, issues because you're a new player, just do something like this. And you know what? This is kind of a crazy way to play. This is kind of nuts, opening up with these 3 barracks and then getting 3 factories for Hellion Thor, and then coming back to all of them, that might feel very uncomfortable. But I'm certain a lot of you can have a very simple build that's like, start getting barracks in an expansion, make a lot of barracks, and then expand and attack up the left lane a lot. And all these things in red, these are things that you actually probably don't even need to think about. Everything that I've just boxed, these red notes, these are things that are probably going to be useful to you to think about if you're really trying to dig deep. But honestly, you really could just know to do this stuff. You could be a what player. You can know what you're going to do and not know why and still be extremely successful. So this is very important, this lesson, the idea of chunking the phases of the game, the Hellions and the Thor, chunking the 3 racks in the factory, chunking the attacking and left lane into this, because it puts it into 4 easily digestible chunks. 4 easily digestible chunks. Digestible chunks. And with that, I'm actually going to delete this. It shall be forever gone. And I'm going to say thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I really appreciate it. Had quite a blast with my MS Paint. I'm going to try to figure out how to end up fixing that in later stages of life, a.k.a. figure out how to fix my webcam. So there's my exclamation point. So for Fun Day Monday next week, if you'd be so kind, is to submit a replay of you doing non-stop queen production. That is right, a game where you always have one queen being made at all points in time, such as this queen to the left, and that of course is a queen, but is only a queen once we get larva vomit. Man, she's a spitter. Blah. And for Newbie Tuesday, I would love it if you submitted games of you in first-person perspective. Let's go ahead and draw that. You submitting games of just you having watched Day 9 Daily number 252. I'll even write that there. 252, The Secrets of Mechanics. You incorporating them and trying to do all sorts of good stuff, like look at your mini-map, look at the interface around there. And we're going to see good ways that you manage to use the interface by looking at locations such as the minimap in the bottom left, this area to do tapping to check on queens, and of course trying to make sure that you are keeping your mineral counts up here nice and low. These are the sorts of things that we're going to be looking at, and of course scrolling is very bad. Try to do as little scrolling as possible in these games. Just submit those to Tuesday at day9.tv, and we will end up reviewing those on Tuesday. So sorry for no Q&A, but I feel very weird having only done MS Paint, but I promise you that I look like that right now. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Bye-bye.